there's already legislation being written, and I don't know what stages it's in, but the United States, Cynthia Loomis, as you said, has written it, that the United States is going to be buying tens of millions of dollars of Bitcoin per day, every day for the foreseeable future, or something like
5 years, yeah.
For 5 years. Yeah. So if that happens and the United States government starts stockpiling Bitcoin, what is that going to, how are other nation states going to respond competitively? What do you expect to play out as a result of that?
Well, again, it's always like multi-factored answer. It's going to force other countries to the table to do that, right? At what magnitude will be up to them, but it's akin to petrodollar. Like the beginning of the petrodollar, all the this is how we've avoided inflation largely in the United States in the 90s and early 2000s. All the countries had to ship in agriculture, energy products, and natural resources, where our industrial manufacturing base was gutted and sent offshore to basically do this. So it will key off something like that will benefit both the constituent consumers of those countries and the United States as a superpower. What I don't like about that, right, and this is something does everybody know what the stock market is? Do we know what stock buybacks are? All right. What I don't like about stock buybacks is what's your favorite company in the world?
My favorite company in the world?
That's publicly traded.
Let's go with MicroStrategy right now.
He's a bad example because he's doing exactly what. Well,
you need a bad company.
No, he's actually doing the dilution is really cool. But let's
go with Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola.
You need a bad company. There you go.
All right, and NVIDIA. All right, so they go in with leverage to buy back their stock, right? Well, I like NVIDIA. I love NVIDIA. I was in the IPO. I actually recently sold it because it's fucking overvalued. I don't want to have to compete with them to buy the shares of the company that I want to invest in. So where is the middle ground here where you have what we would call agnostic, don't give a shit money, and then the common folks who ought to have a Satoshi or two, right? So is it fair for the government to buy 200,000 a year for 5 years, drive the price up to, well, shit, I can't even handle that. It'll be like 10 million. I mean, it's going to be retarded. But I think there has to be a dialogue of what's responsible and reasonable, because that's just as unfair as the Wall Street bullshit system.
Is there anything we can do to stop it, though? I mean,
I'm just saying, I want a dialogue.
Yeah.
Well, you say that wallet is N% pro rata of every constituent consumer in the United States. That's how you fix that. See, we have to talk about it, and then I'll think of something smart.
Yeah.
There you go. That's how you fix it. Done.
Yeah, it sounds like a very elegant solution, but not something that government would probably employ.
Yeah, but we're already maritime admiralty law chattel via our Social Security number, right? So that's how you would sync it up to a pro rata ownership of that wallet.
Okay.
Right?
No, I mean, I agree that it's fair. Of course, if the country owns it, then technically the citizens of the country should own the thing pro rata. But but more immediately, U.S. starts buying a ton of Bitcoin. You think other nation states will also just emulate the strategy? And then what? We get into nation states around the world stockpiling Bitcoin, and that does what to the Bitcoin price? Just
silly. But I then get concerned about power at that point, where, because not everybody wants peace and prosperity, right? Sure. So I would be most concerned of doing a modality that is repeatable, scalable, and transparent here in the United States with the window. Figure we have 2 years until Congress F's this up 3 ways from Sunday to get everything done that we need to get done. Let's focus here and not be as concerned with the fallout of other nations.
Okay, so say that happens, nation states start stockpiling Bitcoin. Bitcoin obviously is going to monetize much more quickly as a result of that. That's also going to sunset money printing as a thing, right? Bitcoin's going to reach a point where you can't, because the more you print money, the more it's going to pump the Bitcoin price, the more people will buy Bitcoin, and therefore you will not be able to print money anymore. Basically, all the fiat currencies will hyperinflate and no longer be useful. So what does that mean? I mean, that's a good thing, right? If we talk about corrupt money, causing all of these bad things, all of these cascading effects that you've described, right? And the food and the healthcare and morality, etc. What does incorruptible money, if we can call Bitcoin incorruptible money, what are the cascading implications of that?
So I always like referring to Bitcoin as the apex predator money. Whereas this is like the douchebag cuck money. This is Bitcoin's the apex predator money. And it essentially the offshoots will be the inverse of geoengineering, the inverse of bioweapons disguised as vaccines, the inverse of GMO, 100,000 chemical poison, blah, 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 the inverse of fluoride, the inverse of murder as a healthcare practice, and it just will transcend everything. And I think it will create both a philosophical, a spiritual, and probably a gigantic educational renaissance where we rediscover some of the history that they have not yet destroyed and create a lot of immense peace and prosperity. Because if you get the debt monkey off people's backs, you're not going to have depression anymore. You're not going to have malnutrition. And without the belligerency of the Pentagon and NATO et al. And Israel and China just, we're just going to blow everybody up. Like, people will have time to think again.
I've heard it perhaps best described as a spiritual crime.
Well, you're extending your time preference, right?
Yeah.
And sorry, I know.
No. Absolute time preference is connected to this, right? The lower your time preference, the larger your spirituality in many ways, right? You consider how do my present actions impact me and others across the widest possible set of time, right? You're actually thinking intergenerationally,
Correct.
Ideally, rather than quarterly as we do in fiat world. So if fiat currency, corrupt money, central banking is this gigantic spiritual crime, what does the other side of that look like spiritually to you? Like, what does this mean? I think this is why this is so hard to talk about, that the word spirit's hard to define. It's not actually woo-woo. I've heard it described as the pattern that propagates independent of substrate. So the pattern that's going through all domains. And that's why I think money's hard to describe, because it's kind of spiritual in that way. It's going through all domains.
You could call God as reality personified, right? And spirit reality personified. But I think what you're getting at is when we look at the Enlightenment and in the actual Renaissance period, right? Those are good examples. This will probably be better than that because they still had coinage fiat money back then. You'll see immense art. You'll see the Tartarian style buildings come back. And I hope you guys know what I'm referring to. You'll see probably much better music because Lord knows it's not music now. I don't even know what's happening. So I think those are like the immediate ancillary benefits, but you'll get poets. All of that's an offshoot of that time preference change, right? When I'm panicked because I got to pay a bill and I know I got to use the money I'm getting because it's going to inflate away. I'm not worried about, pointillism of lily pads.
Beauty. Yeah.
Right. Like Monet would do. Right.
So you expect to see another Renaissance?
Either they're all about to kill us between now and 2030, which is written in UN Agenda 2030, or that happens. We can't, I just don't see any historical example where there's not that when you have low time preference, harmony, and peace.
Well, it's a very sharp fork in the road. I hope we choose the beautiful path.
It's up to the consciousness of all of humanity.
Yes.
It's not up to them. That's the beauty of this. It's up to the consciousness of humanity.
Right. Yes. And we must be as gentle as doves, yet as wise as serpents to navigate what's ahead.
And instead of it just being American, said by Patrick Henry, it's a tree of liberty must be refreshed from blood of patriots and tyrants globally. If the patriots want freedom, they get it because these men can't fight.
Yeah. Well, you are correct historically. I guess I do hold out hope that Bitcoin is somewhat of a bloodless revolution. It is unique in so many other ways.
Right.
And so far, so good, by the way. It is the best performing asset in human history, and it hasn't harmed anyone other than these guys and their descendants. If you enjoyed this clip, click here for the full episode and here for more just like it. Also, like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money and subscribe to stay connected. Thank you.